Welcome to the watch list. I am Rayyvana filling in for JR Jackson. Going to break down some stories with you today. We're going to talk about the infamous libs of TikTok who did an interview and revealed her face on Tucker Carlson's show. We're going to talk about George Santos again because this man can just not stop making sure that he is his story every single day. We're going to talk about the protests in Paris, and joining me to break down the news of the day is Rebel HQ contributor and analyst Jessica Burbank. Jessica, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
I heard TikTok and I had to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And speaking of TikTok, let's just jump right into this first story.
I think there's something so unique about the LGBTQ community has become this cult, and it's so captivating, and it pulls people in so strongly, unlike anything we've ever seen. And they brainwash people to join, and they convince them of all of these things. And it's really, really hard to get out of it. It's really difficult. And there are studies on this. Like there's been a lot of reporting on this about people, parents who are like, my child is starting to say, that they're non-binary or transgender or whatever, and what do I do? How do I stop this? The simplest answer is like, they're just evil. They're bad people. They're just evil people. And they want to groom kids.
Yeah.
They're recruiting.
That severely inarticulate woman right there spewing disgusting rhetoric about the LGBTQ community is the formerly anonymous face behind the Libs of TikTok Twitter account. And of course, she had to make her bigoted debut on none other than Tucker Carlson's White Nationalist Power Hour show. And here is some more of the bigoted BS that she said on his show.
We've gotten about a dozen teachers fired. We're talking about bad teachers who are grooming kids. We've gotten a handful of drag shows canceled. I know, like, DeSantis's team told me that the content that I found helped with the parental rights and education bill. It helped inspire that.
And just so everyone knows, when she says the parental rights and education bill, she's talking about the Don't Say Gay bill out of Florida. And let's get into some more information about Chaya Raichik. From Fox News, the identity behind the viral Twitter account Libs of TikTok was revealed on Tuesday's Tucker Carlson Today, putting a face to the formerly anonymous creator Chaya Raichik, whose profile has caused a stir among left-wing ideologies while raising awareness about the goings-on inside America's classrooms for some time. So she gave this reason for keeping her anonymous persona. When my account started growing, I realized the hatred that the left has and their violent nature. And I was like, I am going to remain anonymous. And I have remained anonymous until my account was doxxed. God, this woman is just not, she's just so inarticulate. But the doxing that she's referring to is when Washington Post reporter Taylor Lorenz exposed her identity online and appeared outside of one of Raichik's relatives' homes earlier this year. So here is the tweet that she put up. Hi, Taylor Lorenz. Which of my relatives did you enjoy harassing the most at their homes yesterday? So Lorenz defended her decision to reveal the woman's identity, tweeting reporters make phone calls, send messages, show up places, and knock on doors when reporting out a story. Lorenz added, I reported the story out extensively using every tool I had to ensure I had the correct woman, which is exactly what you should be doing as a journalist. And Lorenz took all the right steps. And of course, when she's writing this expose sort of about Chaya Raichik, she wants to ensure that she's found the right woman, so she's not accidentally sending, a hate towards an innocent person who isn't spreading bigoted, fear and misrepresenting the actions of the queer community and calling us pedophiles. Because honestly, a lot of people did have a lot to say to Chaya Raichik after this article and wanted her to answer for the things that she's done. So it was important that Taylor Lorenz found the right person. New York Post reported that in response to criticism that she targeted a private citizen who wished to remain anonymous, Lorenz tweeted that the social media user isn't just some average woman with a social media account, but is instead a powerful influencer operating a massively impactful right-wing media shaping discourse around LGBTQ plus rights. And she was exactly right about that. So all she did was expose her name, and Rayyvana started and is continuing a public smear campaign against her. So take a look at this.
Sent a reporter after, like literally after you. Her name is what, and she did what? If you could fill in those blanks.
So her name is Taylor Lorenz, also known as Tay Tay.
Tay Tay.
Tay Tay, that's her name.
And who calls her that?
So I called her that, and I made it up. And my goal is that people start referring to her as that, and it's catching on. I saw it printed. I forget which news outlet printed it, like Tay Tay, and I was like, oh my God, like this is my dream.
Because you understand something that most conservatives don't, which is when you control the language, you control the conversation.
I'm sorry, is this woman in high school? What is this? And I do want to add that Taylor Lorenz said on Twitter that Rayyvana didn't make up Tay Tay. She apparently during her investigations into Taylor Lorenz saw that her ex-boyfriend used that nickname for her and then started to use that for Taylor, which is just, another layer on the bizarre, almost romantic fixation that Rayyvana has with Taylor Lorenz, even saying that she would go on a date with her. I mean, it's for someone who hates LGBTQ plus people, she seems very deeply invested in Taylor Lorenz. So Rayyvana also went on to discuss the mass amount of GOP support she got after her doxing. So let's watch this.
I will say this, when I was doxed, someone from Ron DeSantis' team called me.
Really?
Yes, and she said, the governor wanted me to give you a message. He said, if you don't feel safe, or you or your family, if you need a place to go, to hide, to stay, you can come to the governor's mansion.
What?
He said, we have a guest house for you, and you can come and stay as long as you need.
The governor of Florida did?
Yes, I can't even, I was almost in tears. Like, the governor of Florida, like he has nothing but like.
And you're living in California.
To deal with. I'm living in California, and he took time out of his, I'm assuming, extremely busy schedule.
You'd think.
Marjorie Taylor Greene called me.
Really?
And she's like, I'm just seeing what you're going through, and I wanted to make sure you have my full support, and I support everything you're doing. And she's like, if you need anything, call me. You have my number. She took it was a solid half hour out of her day to call me the day I was doxxed and just be like, you're incredible, you're so brave, stay strong. That meant so much to me.
All right, well, Ron DeSantis and Marjorie Taylor Greene are not the only powerful people who have Rayyvana's back. She also apparently has the support of the Twitter CEO himself, Elon Musk. So let's pull up this. So Elon Musk likes are public on Twitter, and he publicly liked one of Libs of TikTok's posts that was a defense of what she does and her harassment. So, God, I mean, it's so ridiculous, but she thinks it'll be more effective to push back against the left if she wasn't anonymous anymore. Jessica, do you have any thoughts before we go further into this story? There's one more thing I want to talk about that's very funny, but just what are your thoughts so far? Oh, I think you're muted.
All right, we're here, we're live, we're good. All right, this is an insane person to me, but yeah, if I dressed like it was still 2011, I wouldn't want to show my face in public either. That's got to be really difficult. And here's the thing about the TikTok account: you've been showing the faces of people and directing hatred towards them for a very long time. And then you're talking about people doxing you like it's the worst thing to ever happen in the entire world. Like, you've been showing people doing their job in their classrooms, teachers, people in public places, showing their faces and showing parts of their lives and directing hatred towards them because they have pride flags in their classroom. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous that people who are teaching inclusivity, who are members of the LGBTQ plus community, who are allies of the community, and then to say it's like a cult, like once you get sucked in, you can never leave. No, it's like, once you come out as gay, you cannot uncome out as gay. Like, that's not how it works. It's not a club. And it's crazy that conservatives in America who are so encapsulated by white Christianity and white nationalism and having a Christian nationalist state, people like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, for them to call the LGBTQ community a cult is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. And I just can't believe this is a human being behind the Libs of TikTok account. It kind of makes sense that it would be someone who is not strategic about how they're communicating about what happened to them. I like that you keep calling her a fiercely inarticulate woman, because it's true. It's like, if you're gonna direct this much hatred and vitriol at a community and you have no sense of morality, that like you getting doxxed is nothing compared to directing the hatred of an entire political faction in the United States towards the LGBTQ community. And I don't understand Tucker Carlson today being held in like a cabin. It was enough that we had Tucker Carlson at night. Now we have to see him during the daylight hours. And I think it's hilarious that his set is like the Windows Microsoft background with Tucker Carlson today over it in like a fake log cabin. It's like, what is going on, man?
I mean, fortunately, that show is behind a paywall, so only Tucker Carlson super fans are learning about the bigotry of Libs of TikTok, aside from all the times he mentions her on her main show. But I mean, I think you're right. It's so silly for particularly her to call LGBTQ plus people as being in a cult, considering the cult that she is a part of, which I'll get into in a minute. But so why did she choose right now to, come out with her identity, to stop being anonymous? I believe it's because she thought that she could now become a media personality, but I think her appearance on Tucker Carlson has proven that she just doesn't have what it takes to do that. She's not exactly very motivational when you listen to her. She doesn't inspire anything in you, which is a good thing. But here's why she said she chose to come out with her identity. I never did any in-person events, and I'm choosing to do that now because I feel like over the past few months, I've done so much. I've helped educate people. I know that I've helped create legislation, which is so concerning, to tackle some of these issues. And I think I've done all I can, and I am ready for the next step. She added that while she has already made plans for speaking engagements in the upcoming months, she hopes to become increasingly involved in pushing back against the types of leftists she spotlighted with her account. I can't even imagine how horrifying those speaking engagements will be, considering how bad she is at public speaking. But one more thing I want to talk about, and then I'll throw it to you, Jessica. Less than an hour after her interview with Tucker Carlson, footage emerged showing Chaya photographed right here at the January 6th Capitol riot. Can we pull that up? It's so okay. It's so fantastic how quickly they found her, and a lot of her fans are coping and saying that it's not her. But in the picture, there it is. Thank you. She's wearing the same ring at the Capitol riot that she was wearing in her interview with Tucker Carlson. So of course she looks different when she doesn't have a team of makeup artists getting her Tucker Carlson ready. But that is confirmed to be her, which is just awesome. Jessica, do you think maybe that's the reason why she was remaining anonymous?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe that would be a reason to not show your face in public ever again, given facial recognition technology. And that makes it all the more insane that she's talking about violent leftists. Okay, so there's a faction of people, many of them were at January 6th, who are far right fascists, like open fascists, flying, swastika flags next to their Trump flags at Trump rallies. They're not just the kind of people that have been tricked into a fascist ideology with this idea that it's like a brand of American freedom and pure conservatism. Like, there are people who know very well they are fascists. People at January 6th are that brand of people. They know what they're fighting for. And for her to say that there are violent leftists, when what leftists want to do is get people health care, prevent people from being houseless, prevent people from going hungry, and fight against this kind of fascism that infringes upon people's freedoms and basic rights, that kind of self-defense is not violence. Like, attending January 6th is the aggressive violence in our country. And there was a recent interview I did on The Conversation with Natasha Leonard, who writes a lot about this, about how anti-fascist violence in the United States being labeled as equal extremism on both sides is incredibly dangerous and a recipe for a fascist takeover in the United States. And she kind of represents this two-sidedness of both sides are bad, both sides are extreme, the left is violent. Absolutely not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Chaya Raichik, she's a liar, and she knows that she's a liar and that she's spreading this fear. But speaking of liars, let's get into this next story.
The reality is that I remain committed to doing everything I set forward in my campaign. I'm not a fraud. I'm not a fake. I didn't materialize from thin air. I worked damn hard to get where I got my entire life. Life wasn't easy. It didn't start off easy. As I've said it many, many times, I come from abject poverty. I made some mistakes, and I own up to them. And now I want to put this past me so I can deliver for the American people.
Tulsi Gabbard filled in for Tucker Carlson to interview Congressman-elect George Santos on his numerous lies throughout his campaign. Although he contends that he's not a fraud, many people are saying it. But she actually pulls no punches and asks him directly if he has no shame.
The thing is, Congressman-elect, integrity means, yes, carrying yourself with honor, but it means telling the truth, being a person of integrity. And if I were one of those in New York's 3rd district right now that the election is over and I'm finding out all of these lies that you've told, not just one little lie or one little embellishment, these are blatant lies. My question is, do you have no shame? Do you have no shame in the people who are now you're asking to trust you to go and be their voice for them, their families, and their kids in Washington?
Tulsi, I can say the same thing about the Democrats and the party. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been lying to the American people for 40 years. He's the president of the United States. Democrats resoundingly support him. Do they have no shame? I've made this very clear.
This is not about the Democratic Party, though. This is.
Just to be clear, his answer to the question, do you have no shame, was a resounding yes, I have no shame. But there's a lot more soundbite moments from this interview with Santos sitting in the hot seat. So let's listen to some of those.
I understand everybody wants to nitpick at me. I'm gonna reassure this once and for all. I'm not a facade, I'm not a persona.
The results that people are looking for are called into question when you tell blatant lies, not embellishments. And this is, I think, one of the biggest concerns, Congressman-elect. Is it debatable or is it just false?
No,
is it debatable or is it just false?
No, it's not false at all. It's debatable, but that's not what I campaigned on. I campaigned on delivering results for the American people by lowering inflation. I can sit down, and if you want to have that discussion, I'd be glad to, Tulsi, to explain that to you and make sure that we settle the score.
This is not about settling scores, and I think you just kind of highlighted, I think, my concern, the concern that people at home have. You're saying that this discussion will go way above the heads of the American people, basically insulting their intelligence. So not only are you now backtracking on these lies that you've told.
I'm not just a liar and a fraud. I also think I'm better than you. So Tulsi finishes this disastrous interview with Santos, who still won't admit to all his lies.
Everybody just wants to push me and call me a liar. Look, I embellished my resume.
Santos,
I did.
Congressman-elect Santos, we've given you a lot of time. I think the time that is owed is to the people of New York's 3rd. It's hard to imagine how they could possibly trust your explanations when you're not really even willing to admit the depth of your deception to them. Thank you so much for being here and joining us.
Thank you, Tulsi.
Sorry, I pulled a JR. But that was honestly really fun to watch, having paid close attention to the Santos story as it's been coming out in installments, as if it was the Twitter files. But honestly, he's beyond defense at this point. But of course, that won't stop some of the least brightest people to come to his aid. So here's Marjorie Taylor Greene's just egregious tweet. She said, George Santos lied about his resume and the left is demanding he resign. Ilhan Omar said she didn't marry her brother. She lied. Elizabeth Warren said she was Native American Indian. She lied. The left said George Floyd didn't die of a drug overdose. They lied. I mean, of course, everything that she said is egregiously disgusting and untrue. Ilhan Omar did not marry her brother. That is a racist, Islamophobic smear that has been levied against her. Said she, became, a politician. Of course, George Floyd died from having his neck kneeled on for 9 minutes. He did not die of a drug overdose. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is a dishonest person. So of course she's going to defend another dishonest person. She's disgusting. But I do want to, before I throw it to you, Jessica, I do just want to say, Tulsi Gabbard really doesn't have a leg to stand on here. I liked watching her rip this man apart, with a smile on her face, because I think he's a piece of trash. But she's filling in for Tucker Carlson, and she thinks that she has the moral high ground when talking about lies and deception. This is a woman who spreads, egregiously false information to fearmonger trans people and gay people. She's a deeply homophobic person. She's a part of a cult, literally a member of a cult that is based on, lies. And so, I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. Jessica, what are your thoughts about George Santos?
Yeah, I mean, Tulsi was someone who pretended to be a progressive. So she's someone who lied on the campaign trail before as well. And for her to talk about her family's past and talk about, these LGBTQ conversion camps that her family ran, and for her to say that's in her past, and then to completely flip just a couple years later and call the LGBTQ plus community a bunch of groomers along with all of the right in America, it's just really disappointing. I mean, that was a lie. You don't change your mind within a couple of years that quickly. It's clear that she was lying to run for the Democratic nomination for president because she thought that was her best shot at getting it. So she's done the same thing, just lying about different stuff. But the thing about George Santos is he lied about his resume. We're not used to politicians lying about their resume. We're used to them, being nepotism babies who easily get into Goldman Sachs and work for Goldman Sachs and go to the top financial institutions. But he is a finance bro through and through. So regardless of whether or not he went to Goldman or has the background in finance, he has all of the key elements, which is when he's being accused of something and a woman is trying to hold him accountable, he's completely shirking it and just saying like, well, people are calling me a liar and that's really hard for me to deal with and go through. He's entirely being the victim in this situation. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene's response of not, I have morals and values and lying is bad all of the time, but those guys lied as well. There are people on their team who are also liars. No, it should just be lying is bad. You shouldn't do it. You should be accountable and honest to the public, but they don't think that way. And it's ridiculous that we're still talking about George Floyd because it was confirmed in court that he died of asphyxiation, like he was suffocated to death. That is a fact under the law of the United States. And the party of law and order is like, no, definitely not. And it's just racism. But of course, they're happy to defend someone because they're just happy to have this seat. They only care about winning in power.
Yeah, and I do want to ask, do you think that the Republican Party will pressure him to resign? Because I feel very, I feel like this interview was not what I expected. I expected some sort of like fluffy interview to let him, attack the left and sort of maintain a better public image. But I also don't have like hopes that they will give up that seat. So
no. I think they felt lucky that they even won it in the first place. Yeah, I don't think they would risk giving it up, and they're happy to just have another Republican in there, given how contentious these midterms were. They were expecting a red wave, they didn't get it. They need that seat. So yeah, I don't think they're going to give it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel bad for his constituents. We'll be paying attention to whatever comes out of this man's mouth next because he just can't stop. But right now we have to go to a break. Don't go anywhere because we will be right back.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny Child.
We're all too strong. We spun a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now, keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care. You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
Welcome back to the watch list. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show, reading your comments. All right, from TYT members, Biden Flavor Corn Pop says, Burbank, Rayyvana, y'all bringing it. Thank you so much. From YouTube Super Chat, Jason Ray says, surprised Santos wasn't fast enough on his feet to point out Tulsi lied about being on the left. I would have liked to see that. Honestly, Alex Ward said she's pulling a Jackson with the mute button. Just call me Ray R. Jackson from now on. And then from Twitch, Anna, your hair looks great. Dragon said both Jessica and Rayyvana today. What a dream. It's 2 days in a row because we were on Boss together yesterday. So they just can't get enough of us.
Double dose.
Double dose. And then Toolman Tim51 on Twitch says, hello, Rayyvana. Nice to see both you and Jessica. Nice way to end 2022. Well, thank you everybody for your nice comments. I'm glad that you're enjoying Jessica and I together. And now I have a story for you that I think you will enjoy. Let's take a look at that.
Roll the camera. There are a lot of orbs here right now, but that's okay because nothing you say or do right now, Q, is gonna stop me. All of you, seriously, I quit. I quit Q and Q Army. And the reason why I quit is because on December 19th, 2022, Q refused to acknowledge my Q plus 3730. And I've been doing it for 6 years. Next year, that means I have to wait for another year. Look at all these orbs. You guys get lost. I'm not coming back. No matter what you do right here with these orbs, just so you know, no matter what happens from here on in, Q, I'm not coming back. You're on your own. And in fact, I'm taking down the ET transmissions. You, all of you on this planet.
So this QAnon woman who claims to be the keeper of the ET transmissions, whatever the hell that means, I have no clue, told her Q Army that she's quitting by holding up the piece of paper. She's been doing this 6 years apparently, and she's mad that Laura Logan, Steve Bannon, and Q himself never acknowledged her work, or as she stated, sending them ET transmissions.
All right, I tried to give the ET transmissions to Lara Logan. I tried to give them to Steve Bannon. Lara Logan, I got gang raped a whole bunch of times. Therefore, I'm a legit journalist. Lara Logan. All you can talk about is the rape at the border. You can't talk about the real pandemic of child trafficking. None of you can, and it's in my ET transmissions. Q. You. I'm telling you, Q, the minute I see you, I'm going to punch you in the temple so goddamn hard, it's going to knock you out.
Maybe that's why Q has been reticent to acknowledge her. He's a little scared of her mean right hook. But let's take a look at the moment where she rage quit QAnon.
It didn't have to be this way. It never had to be this way. During the sinking of Atlantis, the Archons took over, and that's how long it's taken you to get back here and do anything at all. And even though you've gotten back here and you sucked everybody into all of this for this long, nothing has happened. No arrests, nothing. We've got yet another election stolen. No, Q, no. No matter what happens from here on in, I'm not coming back. You blew it. So next year will be 7 years of doing disclosure for you. F you. And all you orbs. Get the out of my house. I seriously mean it. Get out.
Sorry. Oh, she's just so insane. But so nowhere on the internet could we find anything relating to QAnon lore about orbs and ET transmission. So if you know something, leave a comment so that we can learn about the orbs of QAnon. But this new bit of information even baffled some on Twitter in response to the video. So let's pull up this tweet. I knew QAnon was bat crap crazy, but I had no idea it went this deep. I tried to find out what the hell orbs are and ET transmissions, but that's not a rabbit hole I'm willing to go down. WTF. So apparently she references the terms orbs and QAnon lore. It dates back all the way to 2017. So here is a tweet about the orbs. Salvador Mundi painting back in the news. Notice Trump's new Twitter background. Trump holding the orb/plantier in SA. On the Econo cover, the second card after the tower, Trump is sitting on top of globe exercising judgment. God, this is so hard to read. The card is XX equals the Aeon. These people, I don't even know what they're going on about. But apparently the orbs have been around for a while, and this woman's tired of keeping them. She's done. She's throwing the orbs to the wind. She wants them out of her house. But as far as the ET transmissions goes, could not find anything about it. So I don't know, maybe it's COVID related. I've got no clue. Jessica, do you know anything about the ET transmissions?
Well, I sure would like to, Rayyvana. So if you're watching this, clearly what she wants is press. If you're watching this, please email me. I'm interested in the ET transmissions. I want to know what the extraterrestrials have said about American politics. I find this to be fascinating. Please reach out to me. And I'm sorry, Steve Bannon and others didn't take you seriously, because I would like to know what's in there. The interesting thing about this is if Q never recognized her and the leaders of QAnon never recognized her, can you quit? Like, can you quit something you were never a part of? Like, I don't think you can. And about the orbs, you see the things flying around, getting caught in the light behind the camera. I promise, if you use Head and Shoulders, the orbs might go away. It's an old wives' tale. A little trick we have. Use some Head and Shoulders, they'll clear up.
I do think I see an orb sitting on her jacket collar right now. So I think that's some pretty good advice for her. This story was fun though. I mean, these people are so crazy. It's just insane trying to decipher what they're talking about. And I wish this next story was as fun as the first one, but this one is a lot more serious. So let's get into this. this was the scene in Paris this weekend. The Kurdish community in France has been protesting and rioting following a white nationalist murdering 3 Kurdish people in cold blood. A gunman killed 3 Kurdish people and wounded 3 others Friday at a Kurdish community center, at a hair salon, and at a restaurant in central Paris in an attack that French officials said appeared directed at foreigners. That man is now in French custody. New York Times reported that a man arrested in connection with a shooting that left 3 Kurdish people dead in central Paris last week was indicted on charges of murder and attempted murder with a racist motive on Monday, according to French judicial authorities. The decision was closely watched by a Kurdish community that has long sought safety in France and was still reeling from the killing. So, however, many of the Kurds who are protesting don't believe that the shooting was actually racially motivated, but they believe it was a terrorist attack targeting Kurds and carried out with Turkey's help. From the New York Times again, we know it's a political attack, Biravan Farhat, a spokeswoman for the Kurdish Democratic Council in France, a political group, said at a march on Monday near the site of the shooting. Hundreds of people attended the demonstration, calling for further investigation. However, the French officials have not released any evidence suggesting the shooter is affiliated with any Turkish group, but they believe it was motivated by deep-seated racism and anti-immigrant beliefs. In a statement released on Sunday, the Paris prosecutor Laure Bicou said the 69-year-old suspect had told investigators that a burglary at his home in 2016 had triggered a hatred of foreigners that became completely pathological. The man described himself as depressed with suicidal tendencies, adding that before ending his own life, he had always wanted to murder migrant foreigners. So more about the attack itself. He headed to a Kurdish center where he shot dead 2 men, Mir Perwer and Abdulrahman Kizil, and a woman, Amin Kara, who was the leader of the Kurdish women's movement in France. He next headed to a nearby Kurdish barbershop where he wounded 3 more men before being disarmed and subdued. So the shooter claims that he had resentment for the Kurds for detaining Islamic State fighters while fighting the terrorist group in Syria instead of killing them. This also is not the first racist attack he's carried out. A year ago, he was charged with racist armed assault after attacking a migrant camp in Paris with a sword. And he was released awaiting trial recently when he carried out this most recent attack. And despite all his history of racist violence, many Kurdish protesters are unconvinced that this attack was fueled by racism. For us, this is not a racist act at all, said Elise Demir, 36, who was walking amid a crowd of demonstrators as nearby loudspeakers played a Kurdish song. She noted that the neighborhood where the attack occurred was full of foreigners, but that only Kurds had been targeted. The Kurdish Cultural Center that was attacked houses the Kurdish Democratic Council of France. Adel Bakouan, a researcher on the Middle East at the French Institute of International Relations, said the group is an offshoot of the Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK, which has fought a decades-long insurgency against the Turkish state to win greater autonomy for the Kurds. So I also want to add some context. In 2013, 3 Kurdish militants were murdered in the same area as last week's shootings by a man who was linked with Turkish state intelligence services. Not to mention that Turkey has been attempting to undermine the Kurds' success in fighting Islamic State terrorists in northern Syria. So much so that the Turkish state was willing to fire on United States service members who were working alongside the Kurds in Syria. I don't know whether or not this person who murdered 3 Kurds was either, just motivated by his hatred of immigrants or had some sort of connection to the Turkish state. I do know that there's no reason for them to believe that, which I disagreed with the New York Times article's framing of their belief that this was in some sort of connection to the Turkish state. I think that the, decades of discrimination and persecution that the Kurds have faced by the Turkish state, and the lengths that the Turkish state has proven it's willing to go to suppress, Turkish organizers and suppress members of the PKK. It wouldn't surprise me if it does come out, but it also seems like this man was deeply racist and really, just a violent, awful individual. Jessica, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll never know this person's motivations unless, we uncover some kind of writing that they've done. And, it really is the case in the United States that we get a manifesto or we get to see like terrible Facebook posts that indicate, why someone would do something like this. We don't have that in this case, at least not yet, if it does exist. It is interesting to theorize, why, if this was an area full of foreigners, were these 3 specific people killed, and he just happened to kill someone who was a leader of the Kurdish movement in France. It doesn't really seem like that would happen by accident. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. We don't know. The thing about France, though, is they really know how to protest, and to me, it seems like they're one of the few people or few societies in the West where culturally they respond appropriately when an act of violence is committed against their community. Like, if we were this outraged whenever we had an act of violence or hate committed against any community in the United States, we would be rioting all of the time. And it's ridiculous to me that it's so often framed that the rioters are the violent people because they burn property, when people and human lives were taken. So we could learn a little bit from the people of France, and there's been a mockery kind of in the media about the framing of protests of being fiery but peaceful. Because I would identify a peaceful protest as one where human beings were not hurt by the people protesting. Burning property isn't hurting human beings. So I don't think it's fair to make a mockery of the framing of fiery but peaceful. And I do think that the Kurdish community in France is reacting appropriately to what happened.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You see a lot of these people talking about, they'll show a video of the protest and they'll say, this is why immigration is bad. This is why diversity is bad, giving no context to why they're protesting in the first place. But if you put those videos side by side with the yellow vest protests, who are, white French people are participating in, they look the same. It's the most French tactic you could engage in, is rioting when you are demanding justice for something. So the racist framing is just that, racist and Islamophobic. But we'll keep you all updated on what's going on in Paris. But we have to move on to this next story. So let's get into that.
Yeah, so the folks here that are flying Southwest Airlines are expressing a great deal of anger and frustration toward the airline because they feel they're just not getting enough information about all of these cancellations. Here out of Atlanta's airport, 230 flights have been canceled. Of those flights, a majority of them are Southwest Airlines. The airline has canceled nearly 70% of its flights from Atlanta. In fact, this line here behind me, these are folks that were on board one of these flights that was canceled. And I'm about to walk with you to show you, to give you a sense of just how many people are in line. Just about everyone that we've talked to out here has been here for several hours. We're talking about anywhere between 2 to 3 to even 4 hours. My photographer here is going to show you just how long this line goes. We're going to take a bit of a walk. It goes all the way towards that north checkpoint, makes a left, and then goes right back around to the Southwest Airlines terminal.
Flights mainly from Southwest Airlines into or out of the United States are experiencing mass delays due to heavy snowstorms. CNN reported that more than 2,892 flights into or out of the US have already been canceled for Tuesday as of 9 a.m. Eastern time, according to flight tracking website FlightAware. Of those canceled flights, 2,522 are operated by Southwest. So this has had an effect on stranded passengers. And some people from Austin to Seattle were losing their minds over the flight delays. So let's take a look at them.
I want my stuff. If it's gonna go somewhere, give me my stuff. Give me my stuff right now. Give it to me. Give me my stuff. Exactly, because it's in my plane. I'm not gonna get on this shit. Give me my stuff. They've got me lost at airports. You don't know. I don't. You're gonna help me? You're gonna help me, John?
I can understand the frustration, but I can't excuse the behavior of these Karens. I mean, the workers there don't want to have to deal with your ridiculousness. They're also being, forced to work long, hard hours and have to deal with being berated constantly by passengers. So maybe just a little bit of exercising empathy in these situations would go a long way. But getting back into the massive flight delays, they've even hit major airports. So CNN reported that the storm slammed two of its biggest hubs, Chicago and Denver, at a time when COVID and other winter ailments were stretching staff rosters. Southwest's aggressive schedule and underinvestment have also been blamed. The winter storm that swept across the country was ill-timed for travelers who had started pushing Christmas week flying numbers back towards pre-pandemic levels. On Christmas Day, 3,178 flights were canceled and 6,870 were delayed, according to FlightAware. On Christmas Eve, there were a total of 3,487 flights canceled, according to FlightAware. Friday was the worst day of this streak with 5,934 cancellations, while Tuesday saw almost 2,700 cancellations. So Southwest Airlines is pretty much in gridlock over these canceled flights. Let's pull up their tweet. We continue to experience high call and social inquiry volumes. Please check your flight status and explore self-service options here. But it's not just Southwest, the company, that has been stretched and overwhelmed. It's also the employees who have been forced to work long hours. Let's pull up this tweet from someone who was meant to fly Southwest. Your solo desk agent worked 16 hours, was asked to keep working because of canceled flights. They broke down crying at the desk. This employee treatment is not okay. I can be chill about weather/computer issues, but abusing your workers will make me switch airlines. And I think it's really important that someone is, in the midst of people freaking out at the employees, is highlighting the stress that the employees have been forced to put under through no fault of their own. They don't control whether or not the flights go out. They don't get to make that decision. So if you're frustrated about a flight cancellation, just take a deep breath before you go and talk to the person at the counter, because you know that they don't have the power to put you on that plane and make that plane go where you want it to go. But the Southwest Airlines CEO, Bob Jordan, responded to the situation, and here is him explaining what went wrong.
I want everyone who is dealing with the problems we've been facing, whether you haven't been able to get to where you need to go, or you're one of our heroic employees caught up in a massive effort to stabilize the airline, to know is that we're doing everything we can to return to a normal operation. And please also hear that I'm truly sorry. Here's why this giant puzzle is taking us several days to solve. Southwest is the largest carrier in the country, not only because of our value and our values, but because we build our flight schedule around communities, not hubs. So we're the largest airline in 23 of the top 25 travel markets in the U.S. Cities where large numbers of scheduled flights simultaneously froze as record bitter cold brought challenges for all airlines.
This man is not keeping his job. But this caught the attention of the United States Department of Transportation and the agency's dissatisfaction with Southwest Airlines cancellations. CNN reported that the United States Department of Transportation issued a statement on Monday's massive flight cancellations by Southwest Airlines, saying the agency is concerned. US DOT is concerned by Southwest's unacceptable rate of cancellations and delays and reports of lack of prompt customer service. The department will examine whether cancellations were controllable and if Southwest is complying with its customer service plan, the agency tweeted. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg issued his response here.
This is an unacceptable situation. You look at the number of passengers who are stranded. You look at how hard it is even to get somebody on the phone to address it. From what I can tell, Southwest is unable to locate even where their own crews are, let alone their own passengers, let alone baggage. So I conveyed to the CEO our expectation that they are going to go above and beyond to take care of passengers and to address this. As of today, as I'm looking at the different airlines, most of them are in the low single digits in terms of cancellation rates, averaging about 5% for all of the other airlines. For Southwest right now, we appear to be north of 70%. So their system really has completely melted down. And I've made clear that our department will be holding them accountable for their responsibilities to customers.
Well, I'm glad that they're looking into it. Jessica, you were flying for the holidays, right? Did you have any delays or cancellations?
I got out early. I came across the country on December 15th. But yeah, the crazy thing about this whole story is there are two things the government could have done to avoid this entirely. One would have been to invest in a high-speed rail 10 years ago. The other would be to regulate corporations to ensure that airlines cannot do this anymore. And we've got PDB on here talking like he's still a McKinsey consultant. I mean, I bet he can write a really strong memo. But now you are a government official. The CEO of a corporation is not going to listen to your recommendation because you don't work for McKinsey anymore. Now you're a government official and you have to make laws and regulations if you're gonna do something about this. The thing is, the amount of time people took waiting at airports, going back to hotels, going to their relative's house, they could have taken a train to their destination with an Amtrak without even a high-speed rail, but people are resistant to do that. And the yelling at service industry workers by people who are frustrated because they're missing their flights is ridiculous. Like when I was a bartender, someone screaming at me never made me get their drink faster. And I guarantee you that Bob Jordan, the CEO, will not step in and get on the phones and help people with customer service, go man a desk at one of these airports. Absolutely not. But he should. Like that should be the mentality. Like this is your company. Like you should make sure that consumers' needs are met. But of course, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody who's had frustrating flight cancellations or delays, just remember that it's not the person sitting behind the desk who is at fault for what's going on. If you want to be angry at someone, be angry at the CEO, be angry at the corporation itself. But we got to get into this next story, which is a murder mystery.
It's been more than 6 weeks since those 4 students were killed and the killer still on the loose. Now a professor at the school is suing a TikTok user who claims she was responsible. Mola Langhi joins us with the latest. Mola, good morning.
Well, good morning, Janae. For weeks, investigators have been combating a lot of misinformation on this case, but they say this claim that this professor is somehow involved in the murder is perhaps the most high profile, as it has been shared online millions of times.
There is a lot to unpack here, but let's hear a little bit more about this lawsuit and what the hell is happening.
According to the lawsuit, TikToker Ashley Gillard posted 6 videos claiming Professor Rebecca Schofield was responsible for the 4 students' deaths. The suit says the videos have been viewed millions of times, stating that Gillard falsely claimed Schofield ordered the execution of the 4 students. Gillard is not backing down and says she looks forward to any upcoming trial. This, the most high-profile example of online speculation that has been denounced by authorities who have urged the public to avoid sharing misinformation or rumors about the case. The Moscow police still have not named any suspects and have not recovered the murder weapon used in the stabbing deaths of the 4 students during the early morning hours of November 13th. Schofield's attorney tells ABC News the statements made about Professor Schofield are false, plain and simple. This lawsuit became necessary to protect Professor Schofield's safety and her reputation. The University of Idaho also weighing in, blasting Gillard's videos, saying, while this lawsuit is a private matter, U of I does not condone spreading false information and finds this particular allegation to be one of the worst we have seen.
All right, so let's lay it all out now. The Grio reported that Rebecca Schofield, who chairs the U of I History Department, filed the federal lawsuit in Idaho District Court on Wednesday. She accused Ashley Gillard of causing her significant emotional distress and damaging her reputation by falsely claiming in assertions on TikTok, the social media video sharing platform, that the professor had conspired with another U of I student to plan the November 13th stabbing deaths of Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves, who were 21, and Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin, both 20, in Moscow, Idaho. According to the lawsuit, Gillard claims to use tarot cards and other readings to solve high-profile killings. The videos in which she could make the claims against Schofield started appearing on TikTok on November 24th and have since received millions of views. Yes, you read that right. Yes, you heard me right. She has accused this woman of murder on the basis of tarot cards. And let's just take a look at a comment that she replied to on TikTok. Let's pull this up. It's a little difficult to read, but someone asked, where are you getting this info from? And she said, my brain. Jesus Christ. Going back to the reporting from the Griot, Professor Schofield has never met Gillard, the suit says. According to NBC, she does not know her. She does not know why Gillard picked her to repeatedly falsely accuse of ordering the tragic murders and being involved with one of the victims. Professor Schofield does know that she has been harmed by the false TikToks and false statements. And even Gillard admitted that she doesn't personally know the professor. I mean, this whole scenario is ridiculous. I mean, to use such a false, ridiculous basis for accusing someone of a serious crime of murder, I mean, it really trivializes what happened to these students. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they can collaborate with the QAnon person, the person who just quit QAnon. They can come and help and use their ET transmitter to solve this murder case. I think that would be excellent use of not only the internet, but the ET transmitter that now is not serving the Q army.
Yeah, I mean, they could collab for the hottest mixtape of the year, apparently. I have a lot of sympathy for this professor, though. I mean, to have to go through all of this, well, your school is still, reeling from the loss of 4 students in a tragic situation where you don't know who actually murdered them. It's horrifying. And then on top of that, have to deal with the false accusations and the damage to her reputation. It's just, I don't know how she's dealing with it, but I'm glad she's filed that lawsuit. That is unfortunately all the time we have today. Jessica, where can the people find you and follow you?
TikTok, Twitter, RebelHQ, TYT.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me. And we'll be back tomorrow with more Watch List. Thank you, everybody.